Hi, and welcome to the Working Mom Podcast. Today I have an awesome interview that I'm going to bring you with Megan Stratton. I met her by chance in a Facebook group and we connected and we really hit it off, and I'm really excited. I think you're going to love her just as much as I did. So let's get started. All right, Megan, thanks for joining the Working Mom Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. So let's just jump right in and tell us about who you are and what you do.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me, Sandy. I am super excited to be here today. I am Megan Stratton. So I have been married to Mark. It is actually our 3-year anniversary this month.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah. We have a wild 2-year-old daughter. Her name is McCartney, after Paul McCartney from the Beatles, but we call her Mick.
Love it.
Yeah, and I have been in digital media and digital marketing for almost a decade now. So I work for an NBC television station here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then I co-host a podcast for moms, entrepreneurs, women that just want to live a better life with my best friend, Courtney Sample, and that's called the Unshaken Podcast.
Love
and then
it.
I have my blog named meganstratton.com. So yeah.
I love it. I was checking out your website where you have your blog and it's super cute. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah.
Your job.
Sure. So I have a career that I love. I've been in digital media, like I said, for almost 10 years. I have worked on the agency side of things, and I've also worked at several different television stations. So this is actually my third TV station. I just moved back to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I'm from, a year ago to raise my daughter next to my parents. And so I am basically in charge of all things digital. Like if you are ever online shopping and you go to a website and you see a pair of shoes and then you go to Facebook and that exact pair of shoes is there, that's what I do.
Wow,
So,
that's really cool.
yeah. So I help with everything from, pretty much the entire digital world. And then we have local news and weather apps that I can help sell advertising on. And I'm just in charge of the sales team to lead the efforts for all digital revenue. So I love it. It's actually a super, super fun job.
That's nice. It's really nice when you have a job that you like.
Yes.
So you said you have a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you go back to work after having her?
Yeah.
Or were you kind of like working, and then obviously you said 10 years, so you were working and then you had her. What was your time frame?
Sure. So I had actually planned to take 12 weeks off. I was going to just take that entire time. Being a first-time mom, I didn't know how my body was going to react. I didn't know how I was going to feel. I wanted to spend as much time with her as possible. And so the company that I worked for, 12 weeks on FMLA, I actually ended up having to go on bed rest at the end of my pregnancy. So 2 of those weeks that I was planning on spending with McCartney outside of my tummy, I spent with her inside of my tummy. So I had 10 weeks with her before I went back to work, and that would never be long enough for me. The 12 weeks wouldn't have been long enough either.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had 10 weeks together before I headed back.
Oh, that's so hard. So, what made you go back to work? Because you said, 10 weeks isn't long enough, but what made you go back?
I never actually thought of not going back, which may be like the crazy, unpopular, thing to say. But I have always loved being like a career and working woman. Like I'm very competitive. I played sports, in college. I'm very driven by being around people and feeding off their energy. And so I had a job that I absolutely adored. I had a ton of friends that I worked with, and so work didn't feel like work. So I always planned to go back, but it was 15 times harder than I ever thought it would be. So
Yeah. I can understand that. I'm a lot like you. I'm very competitive. I thrive in social areas, and I like being around people, but it was really hard. So you said it was hard. What are some emotional and just some obstacles that you faced when you headed back to the workforce?
Yeah, I think the first thing is mom guilt, right? I mean, everyone talks about it, but when does it actually set in? I think it sets in like the second that they lay your newborn on your chest, because
Mhm.
from that point forward, like everything that all my hopes, all my dreams, my joys, my fears, everything's wrapped up into this little person. So I think I just felt this overwhelming sense of, how could I leave her? She's so young and fragile, and, we're sending her to daycare, and are we picking the right place? And, with being a full-time working mom and deciding to put your child in daycare, if you don't have family around or friends, or even if you do and you decide to put them in daycare, I think that's one of those topics that we're really, really tough on each other with. And so when people would ask, oh, what are you going to do when you go back to work? And I said, well, she's going in daycare. You could definitely tell that some people thought, well, why is she not staying home? And some people are like, oh, well, my child was in daycare and she was sick all the time. And
Mhm.
so being a new mom, I mean, your emotions are already crazy. I was
Yeah.
breastfeeding. I had like a very hard time breastfeeding. I was the girl that ordered all the smoothies and drank the blue Powerade and ate oatmeal and like did,
Uh-huh.
you know what I mean? Everything possible. So just emotionally dropping her off that first day at daycare, I still remember what she had on, and my
Mhm.
husband literally like almost carrying me out of the daycare because I was just distraught. I was like, wow, this person that I'm responsible for and I love so much, I'm handing her over.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, emotions were running high, but I was so lucky to have a great support system when I went back to work. They provide me with a great place to pump, and I had a lot of friends there, and the work that I do, I'm genuinely passionate about. So that all helped a little bit, but
Mhm.
still emotions, they're high. You just had a baby.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So when you were at work, how hard was it to focus on work for the first little bit? Even though you
Impossible.
loved it.
Impossible. And I definitely had like a pretty wicked time with postpartum depression. I didn't really know what it was at the time. But I was just so emotional. Like people could ask me, oh, well, how's McCartney? And just like thinking about her, I could get so worked up because I
Mhm.
wasn't around her.
Mhm.
So it was really hard. I mean, emotionally, you're trying to focus on work, and all you can think about is, how many ounces do I need to pump to make sure McCartney has a bottle for dinner? And what if like a tornado comes? What if somebody goes into the daycare and gets her? What if I get
All
in a
the
car?
what ifs.
Yeah, it's just like you become so consumed with, fight or flight mode, because that's how your
Mhm.
body has, what it's been going through. And so even though I love my job, I mean, the clock hit 5 o'clock and I was
You're like,
gone. And if
"I'm out."
people were like, Megan, we need something from you, I'm like, okay, see you tomorrow. I mean, I was out.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I remember my first child, because I have two. Um, I remember I struggled breastfeeding. I took a breastfeeding class, and I don't know if I wasn't paying attention or what the deal was, but I did not understand the scheduled pumping.
Right.
And then, I had to work financially, so I was trying to pump in like a 10-minute window, and I just like stopped producing. I
Yeah.
was getting like an ounce here, so I felt like so horrible, like I was a failure. And then, you have to figure out same thing, I have to pump this much so that I can take this to daycare, and then you have to mix this much, and it was just like, it was that, and alone can make you crazy, the breastfeeding thing. So
For sure.
so you had a good team and you faced some of those obstacles. It sounds like you internally were battling, but outside you had a pretty good support system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that having postpartum and not really knowing what it's like, because to me, before I had a baby, I didn't really have any reason to research postpartum. So it's one of
Mhm.
those things like you don't know until you don't know. And so after I had her, the things that I had read about, I'm doing air quotes, postpartum depression, is you feel no connection to your baby, and you feel like you might hurt yourself, or you may hurt your baby, or you just are totally, don't really care, like apathetic to everything.
Mhm.
That's not how I felt at all. I
Right.
felt overjoyed, over the moon, like, oh my gosh, God has given me my little girl. Who am I? Like, who am I, a mom? Am I a digital sales manager? Like, I just was struggling with the transition. And that is another way to look at postpartum depression. So, I knew that going to work, everyone was going to expect me to be, pre-baby Megan and not post-baby Megan. And I had a really hard time figuring out what that looked like.
Yeah. Yeah. So what have you learned from motherhood that's helped you in your career after you kind of smoothed some of these challenges out?
Oh gosh, so much. I think, it's crazy to relate the two, but really just like with parenting, especially in these toddler years, like consistency is everything. And it's everything at work too. I have a team right now of 10 people who depend on me to be consistent and to do what I say I'm going to do, the same way that I need to be with my daughter when we're trying to potty train her and, sleep train her and, get her good eating habits and teaching her, like being consistent, reading to her so she can learn. So I think, it's definitely, there's a tie there. And it's weird because when you have a baby, everything goes in like these little increments or milestones of time. Like, okay, by 3 months, she should be really working on tummy time. And you know what I mean?
Yes.
Then by 6 months, she should be introducing new foods. And so it just gives you these like chunks of time. And it's kind of relatable to goal setting in like a career environment. So I think those two things, and overall just understanding, being more empathetic, more kind. I think before I had a child, I was one of the youngest managers in the company, and I felt like I had to be very stern, stand up to be well respected. And then after having McCartney, I think that it definitely softened me a little bit and made me understand and be more empathetic and kind, because that's what I'm teaching her to be. So I should be the example for that.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm also in management and I have a team and I do HR as well. So I kind of have like an extended team. And sometimes having children is really like makes you process how you manage people, because it sometimes is so similar to having children.
100%. We always joke about, what is management? It's being a better babysitter to people that are in similar age to you.
Yes, definitely. Oh, that's so funny. So on the flip side, what have you learned from your career that helps you raise your family?
One of the things that I try to do in any phase of my life is, if I don't know the answer, don't be afraid to say, like, I'm not sure how to do this. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to keep learning. I think a lot of times in management, when I get asked questions about like a certain digital product, like how do the ins and outs of this work? And if I don't know, that's okay. Like, I'm not expected to know every single thing all the time right on the spot. I'll find out and I'll get you the answer. But I think, just knowing that it's okay to not know everything, and you learn that daily as a mom, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's okay that we're, 2 years and 3 months in, and we still have a pacifier because we're working on it. She only has it at nap. It's something that I didn't have the answer to, but the more that I research about it and stuff like that, it's like, okay, show yourself some grace. And know that you don't have to know everything and you're not expected to know everything, but, do your best. And then with Google now, you have no excuse to not find the answer.
Yep, exactly. I learned how to fix my dishwasher and my dryer and everything on YouTube.
Yes, you go, mama. Yeah.
So, the pacifier thing, good luck to you. That can be a real hard one to break. My daughter was on the pacifier. My son was on a pacifier. It was easier to break my son than it was to break, but there was so much judgment around having the pacifier. Like, those things are gross. And it just, people are so mean about how they raise their children. And you're like, oh, that good for you.
Yeah, right.
So we're also having trouble with my, my son. He'll be 3 in June. And he's never been a good sleeper. And my daughter was an awesome sleeper. So I was like, everybody should do the cry it out method. It works. It doesn't always work. I have been humbled
Yeah, right. Kids do that to you real quick.
Yes.
Humbling is like on the top of their things they can do well with parents.
Right, which also does help in your career setting.
Yes.
You're like, all right, lesson learned, moving on.
Exactly.
I hope you guys are loving the interview with Megan as much as I am, but I wanted to take a minute and talk about the sponsors that I have going on. I am partnered with God's Glory Box. It's a monthly reminder of God's glory, which I just love because we all need that little reminder of who He is and how much we are loved. And it also is a great way to help out people in need. Every box that's purchased helps provide 5 meals. 5 meals for people in need. So you can go to godsglorybox.com, and if you purchase 1 box, use the code TheWorkingMom5 to save $5 off that box. But if you're interested in getting more boxes, 3, 6, 9, or 12, at checkout use the Working Mom 10. That's the Working Mom, the number 10. And you will save $10 off of those 3, 6, 9, or 12 boxes. Another company I want to take some time and mention is My Braces. It's just an amazing company. I have just recently got braces, and I found this company. You put these little things on your brackets and it stops the pain from tearing up your lip. If you have children with braces, or if you're an adult with braces like I am, make sure you check out Braces. The link is in my website, and I'll also have it in the show descriptions, just like I will for God's Glory Box. But you can use my code SWESSEL, that's SWESSEL, the number 10, SWESSEL 10 at checkout, and save 10% off of your purchase. All right, let's get back to the interview with Megan. So you're a Christian, I'm a Christian. So how does faith play a role in your life, being a working mom?
Yeah. Faith is literally the ribbon that ties everything together. I mean, I grew up in a very strong Christian family, but I decided that I didn't feel like that church may be right for me. And so when I went to college, I was kind of this on again, off again Christian. And I was going through one of those phases where, I had a lot of questions, right? Like, well, how do I know that there's a God? And how do we know that the Bible is this? And questions that I feel like you go through that just build to your testimony. And I was really starting to get back into my faith and speaking with God when I was getting married. Mm-hmm. And that was something that we had talked about. We both wanted to be on the same page, but never will I hit my knees harder, or I can't recall a time in my life that I've hit my knees harder than after I had McCartney, because I just remember being in the shower and listening to that song by Hillsong United, Oceans. Mm-hmm. It was one of my favorite songs, and I would just bawl my eyes out. And I just remember I would just over and over, God, please don't let anything happen to her. Please be with me. Please protect us. Like, just basically begging, like, at His mercy to make sure that my daughter's protected. And, the way that God speaks to people, I think, is different for everybody. But for me, I kind of just get this like feeling and kind of get almost like goosebumps, but I can definitely feel like that's how God speaks to me. And just throughout my life, the closer that I run towards Him, the better that things work in my marriage, the better that things work with me as a mom. I have more patience. I have more grace. I am not fearful, like that fight or flight mode that you're in after you have a baby. Those walls start to come down because, Jesus says all the time, and God says in everything, do not be afraid. Like, I'm with you. And so worrying constantly about McCartney and is she going to be okay? As a Christian, I have to put my faith in God and know that His plan is the best plan. And that should take my worry away. Mm-hmm. Do I, sometimes never worry about her? Of course not. Like, I will fail every time, but right. Knowing that I have someone to lean on and that He has entrusted me with her because I think she's the greatest thing ever. And knowing that that's who He chose for me, it blows my mind. Like, it just makes my heart just like overflow with joy because, she's mine and he designed that. So faith keeps our family on track. And, McCartney's to the age now where she knows Sundays we go to church and she'll say, let's go to church. And that's like music to my ears. So, Yeah, it holds everything together for sure.
Oh, I definitely agree. You said that really beautifully. It's packaged in a bow. I like that. I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, you can have it, girl.
So, would you mind sharing your testimony with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, I grew up in a very strict church in the South, and I've always known and felt like there is a greater, God. And I really decided, I guess, after I got baptized that I wanted to become a preacher. And
Just a quick question. When did you get baptized? How old?
Yeah, I was 12.
Oh, good for you. Okay,
Yeah.
I was in the 4th grade. I was 9, so I just
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, and I got baptized. I remember it was very close to September 11th because my mom's birthday was September 10th. And then I think it was that year, the year right after, when like the September 11th happened. That's how I'm kind of, crazy thing, but it was a landmark in time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I decided that I really wanted to be a preacher, and in the church that I was in, it was not widely accepted for women to lead
Mm-hmm.
prayer or be a part of like the leadership team and
You
stuff
just be
like that.
quiet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was very much a sermon, and I hope this makes sense, that they talk at you, not to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to really kind of become resentful towards the Christian faith, and really questioning, like, well, if God made, all of us, and I feel like I have a calling on my heart to talk about him, like, why can I not talk about him, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really when my on again, off again, relationship with God was happening, because I was getting older and I wanted to sleep in instead of go to church. And then I got to college and my mom wasn't there to wake me up. And then I went through a very, very bad breakup after college. I went through not really knowing what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be a lawyer and go to law school. And then I did an internship and I hated it. Yeah. And my dad's a lawyer, so I can say that. I was like, Dad, how do you do this every day? He's like, I told you would hate it. But, basically I felt like I was floundering, and like I really couldn't get grounded. I couldn't find my center. And I started surrounding myself more with people that were going to church, and that was a big deal to them. And, faith kind of started coming back into my life. And then I met my husband, and then we had McCartney. So we got pregnant on our honeymoon. So we had McCartney, like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, kind of thing, like right next to each other. And it was really after I had McCartney, when I was just struggling so hard with postpartum depression, that I've never felt or heard like God's presence or voice like more clear in my entire life. And so, faith just really started coming back in different ways. I started listening to faith-filled podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I started listening to, worship music, and I started kind of reading more about the Bible. And just the closer that I felt like I got and chased after, Jesus Christ, the more that I felt calmer, and it wasn't floundering anymore. I finally started to feel grounded. And after I had McCartney, I knew that, I had kind of this new opportunity to start a relationship with God the way that I want my daughter to see me have a relationship with God. And so I went from someone probably 10 years ago that would have never sang in church because I was, embarrassed or whatever. I could use the excuse I didn't have a good voice, but heaven knows I sing in my car like I am Carrie Underwood,
Oh, Carrie Underwood. Yes. Oh my gosh.
To now I'm on the host team at church, and I serve in our nursery, and we have an adopted child in Kenya that we are.
Oh, me too. Oh my gosh. I want to let everyone who's listening know, we don't know each other. We just network, and we have so many connections. Who do you do it through? Compassion?
Yes.
Me too. Yes. His name is Duncan, and he is in Kenya, and we have sponsored him since before we had children.
Yes. See, this is why I love podcasting. It like literally connects you. And this is a total fate thing, right?
Yes.
That, we met and everything. So my heart has been like wide open. And I've been to the point where like, I'm that girl in church now that I am happy to sing and I'm happy to talk about my faith with other people. And I'm not scared anymore and I'm not embarrassed and I don't feel like I'm unworthy because I haven't been a perfect Christian.
Love it.
And so, really like my testimony to me, it's had like its ups and downs, but whenever I put all of my, eggs into betting on Jesus and putting everything and chasing after him first, my marriage is better. I'm a better mom. I'm a better person. And that's how faith works,
Yeah.
So
I love it. I sing on the worship team too. I've been part of that. I don't do the children's ministry. I love the children, but I don't love working in the children's
it's so tough.
I got a lot of stuff to do. Plus we practice on the Sunday morning before service. So it's like I gotta narrow it down for me anyway, time wise. And when I had one kid, I volunteered sometimes, and then I was like, I gotta say no to something. So but I love your heart, and I love that you're not afraid to do these things anymore. And I think that's what I love the most about being in Christ is the freedom. And I think that from a worldly perspective, sometimes people feel like we're in bondage to these rules, but really it's such freedom. So I love your testimony, and thank you so much for sharing it. And I'm so glad that, you get to pass this on to your daughter and she's a part of your story. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So what would you say to the other working moms that are listening? If you could give them a couple of pieces of advice, what would you like to say?
Oh, man.
I just have a hard question. Sorry.
Yeah. I would say you are doing great. There are so many little things from like changing the paper towel roll to going grocery shopping to making sure your babies have their jacket to packing diaper bags to doing laundry and, late nights and early mornings and all of those little things. Like they make you stronger and braver and kinder and more faithful. And I think it helps improve your servant heart. And so those are all traits that you want to pass down to these people that, God has given us as gifts to raise and to bring up. And so I would just say, you are beautiful and you are worthy and you are chosen and you are enough and you can do absolutely anything.
I love that you are enough, because I feel like as women in general, even before you have kids, there's a lot of stigma about how we look and just all of the perfect things that we try to complete ourselves with. And then you have children, and then you have stretch marks, and you have postpartum, baby body, and you just have all of these things. And what's the goal? Who are you trying to please? You are enough. It's always great to better yourself, but you're enough just being you. And so I really love that.
I do too. And we are worldly humans. And so we are not going to be perfect, but every time that I catch myself slipping up, I love that song too. Let them see you and me. And I just try to think like, if someone saw me and saw the way that I acted and interacted with my child and interacted with everyone at work, would they know I'm a Christian? And if the answer is no, then I'm not doing it well enough. So just making sure that when people meet Megan Stratton, they're like, yeah, man, she goes for Christ. And that's what they remember about me.
I love that. Well, Megan, it has been such a pleasure. I am so glad that we connected and that you are a guest on the Working Mom podcast. I think you just bring so much to my podcast, and I just want to say thank you. And I love who you are already. This is the little time that we've got to spend together, so I hope that we can connect more. But I do want to give a little shout out to your podcast. So go ahead and tell people where they can find you and your podcast, all that stuff.
Perfect. Yes. And thank you so much for having me. Yeah, great. So you can find us on all the podcast platforms. So iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, but we are Unshaken Podcast. We also have unshakenpodcast.com. I hang out on Instagram at Meg Strat, and then my blog is meganstratton.com.
All right, Megan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandy.
Guys, I hope you loved that interview as much as I did. I keep saying that, but she was just so much fun and brings so much to the podcast. So if you want to hear more of those type of interviews, please let me know what you want to hear, what you liked, what you didn't like. Also, if you are interested in being a guest on the Working Mom podcast, please go to my website, www.theworkingmom.site, S-I-T-E, and go to the Contact Us page and complete the request form to be on as a guest.